So Joey is the owner of Cuppa SEO Web Design. He's an expert in areas of web design, SEO, user experience, and website conversion, and is the author of the book, A Holistic Guide to Online Marketing. In addition to running his own web design firm, he offers consulting services and engaging presentations based on the principles found in his book. Joey, thank you so much for joining us today. I will let you take it from here.
Hey, thank you for having me, and thank you everybody for joining us today. So let's just dive right in. And start with a question that a lot of people ask me is, what is SEO? And I'm going to lead off with a story that SEO is like a sandwich. Okay, let me explain. There's going to be a couple of food analogies in this. It seems to be my MO. So if you think about it for a second, a lot of us could probably survive off of 2 pieces of bread for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But none of us are going to look forward to that, nor is it really optimal, right, or palatable to have that for 3 meals a day. Most of the people I talk with, especially it's lunchtime here in Madison, Wisconsin, and most people for lunch, instead of 2 pieces of bread, would prefer to have maybe like a really nice sandwich with some organic turkey, lettuce, tomato, mayo, a pickle on the side, and your favorite cold drink. Maybe we throw some bacon on there and turn it, instead of a turkey sandwich, into a club sandwich, right? So that is much more palatable, much more engaging. You're looking forward to that for lunch, right? And it's kind of the same thing with your website. As long as you have a working URL and a working website, and you're paying for your URL every year, if somebody knows, if you're at abc.com and someone types that, they get to your website, right? It's kind of like 2 pieces of bread. It kind of just exists there and it can survive. It doesn't have to be optimized. It doesn't have to have great content, and it can still live. But here's the thing, obviously that's not optimal. That's not going to be palatable to the human eye, nor is it going to be in good favor with Google. So the question is, how do we take our website and turn it into this delicious, multi-layered sandwich? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We've got 6 layers I want to share with you of how to optimize every single web page on your website, every single blog post. So it has this multi-layer SEO equation into it, so it gets found more easily. And just as importantly, it's really engaging to the viewer, to the reader, okay? So, and if you guys have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. We're going to do a Q&A at the end. So, but don't want you to lose those questions if you've got them. So before we jump into the layers of this SEO sandwich, what I want to share with you is 2 of the main ingredients that we've got to use, right? When we build the sandwich. So one of the ingredients is keywords. We'll talk a little bit more about those shortly. The other main ingredient is your content, the content itself. Okay, so keep that in mind, that this is kind of like the ingredients we're using to build. And so what I'd like to share with you now is that list of 6 layers to make your website more palatable. And I like to say more delicious. It's kind of being silly, but it's also, just like that sandwich, when as a human being gets excited about a meal, we want people to be excited to be on your website. We don't want it to be something that they're trudging along through, right? So what we're going to look at today is going to be title tags, image and alt image names. We're also going to look at what's called your H1 headline, or your main headline on the page, the content on your page, your H3 headlines or your subheadlines, any text links that you might have on a page. Those are your 6 layers of the sandwich. And then we've got a bonus that I want to share with you also, which is your meta descriptions. Okay. Before we get into more detail about how to optimize each of these areas, what I want to share with you is a little bit of information about keywords and creating a keyword report. Because really the first question is, before I can populate that with the ingredient of keywords, I need to know how to find the best ones that are actually going to give me some good results, right? So I'll share with you a sample keyword report This one is mostly made up to protect everybody's information, the clients that we do the work with. But it's very accurate as far as how we create a keyword report. And I want you guys to kind of have a flavor of how to do this yourself. Or if you hire someone to do it, what you should expect from a keyword report from somebody, okay? First thing we look to do when we do a report is we want to identify what region or regions somebody's doing business in. This could be national, international, or it could be hyper-regionalized. Like in my case here, for my business, most of my business is in Dane County. So we've got Madison and Dane County as regions, right? And that's listed up here as well. So one of the things we're looking to do is identify what is a good keyword phrase as far as how much traction or how much search volume it has. And that's these numbers here for Madison and also for Dane County, okay? And then once we identify what keywords actually have some people searching for it, we want to know how much competition is there? Is it low, medium, high? Is it ridiculously high, ridiculously low? And that's what this column is for. Now to do this, we use something called KW Finder. That's kwfinder.com. It's something that you guys can try and use for free. The free version is very limited, but you can go and pop in a few different keywords each day and test them out and start to kind of understand how to do it if you are a do-it-yourselfer, okay? If you want to create an entire keyword report for yourself, it's pretty inexpensive. If you just like sign up for a month, get all the work done, and then just, stop using the service. I have no affiliation with them other than the fact that we use them and love them because they allow us to drill down into a city region. So in this case, like Madison, right? That's really important if you are a small local business, wherever you are in the country or the world. If you do business mostly in a particular county, in a particular city, being able to drill down to that and do search queries to say, like, how many people are searching for a dentist in Madison, Wisconsin, right? That's really helpful to know that, hey, these are my actual potential customers who are searching because they're in the region I do business in. So hopefully that makes sense. One of the other things that we're looking for here before we move on is that we want to make sure there's a good relevance factor. Okay, there's a lot of criteria that goes into putting together a really solid keyword report and a really solid keyword list. It's not easy. So one thing I encourage is to be kind to yourself while you're doing this work. Okay, I've been doing it for over a decade. So for me, it's like eating or drinking, right? So when you're doing this and you're using the app, you do your best to kind of find the best keywords you can. The relevance factor is kind of hard to explain in a short workshop, but basically what you're looking at there is that you want to be able to hit the bullseye. So something like dentist, Madison, Wisconsin, we want to make sure that the search results for that are actually dental offices and not necessarily like videos or a Wikipedia page about it, right? Because if we're a dental office, we want those search results to go to dental office centric results, where we are providing root canals and, crowns and things like that, right? So that's what I mean when I say on target. So again, don't worry about understanding all of this completely. It's more about to give you the lay of the land. So if you're doing it yourself, you know what to look for. And if you're hiring someone, you know what to ask about. If you want to do this yourself and you're like, wow, I wish I had more information about this, go ahead and grab a copy of my book. It talks about this process in step-by-step format to really help you dig in deep, okay? With that being said, let's dive into these 10 layers of the SEO sandwich. Oh, I forgot. I want to share with you one more thing about keywords. It's what I call common sense keywords. And that's basically, if you're looking at doing analytics and doing research and you're saying, holy cow, I can barely turn my computer on, which is the case for some clients. They actually tell me that. Do the next best thing. Sit down, make a list of keywords that you think or know people use to find what you do. Ask colleagues, ask clients, ask your team members, okay? And just start to put together a list of common sense keywords. It's better than nothing. And what's nice about this too to remember is that once you have that list, whether you're doing the actual KW Finder research or you're just doing a common sense keyword, make sure you regionalize those keywords, right? So again, if you're a dentist, Dentist Madison WI, that's going to help Google know, hey, I do business here. And that's going to really help you get found by the people who you want showing up in your space. This becomes a little bit more difficult if you're a national brand or you're an online store, then that regionalization isn't quite as powerful. So now let's talk about making the SEO sandwich. The first thing I want to share with you guys is your title tags. This is something that most people have no idea what it is. They don't see it and they don't pay attention to it, but it exists and Google pays attention to it. It's right up here at the top of this slide. Mine says web design Madison WI, and then that's a stick in case you're wondering what that character is. Web design Madison WI, SEO, UX, web design services, Kappa SEO. That's my title tag. This is one of the first places that Google looks to see, hey, what is this website about? What is this page about on this website? So it's important. Something else that's important is you're going to always want to lead with your most important, most powerful keyword phrase for that page, okay? Like putting your best foot forward. Google looks at this first slot right here, and it holds the most weight of the title tag. So always lead with your best keyword there, all right? Another tip I've got for you is to make sure that your title tag is 70 characters or less, including spaces and those sticks I showed you earlier, okay? 70 characters or less. Otherwise, it runs too long and you're on the risk of getting a penalty from Google. And that depends on their mood, basically, in that moment, whether or not you get a penalty. So we just follow the rules because we want to make sure that there's no penalty. The final note about title tags is, in addition to leading with your most important keyword phrase, the tail of your title tag should always be your business name, okay? Unless you're Nike or Adidas or Reebok, leading with your brand name is kind of like not that important, right? Because it's not a great keyword. And let's be honest, if someone is searching for Kappa SEO, they're going to find us because that's a name that's in my URL. I don't think of it as much of a keyword as I do for web design in Madison, Wisconsin, right? So that's your title tag. Every single page should have one. And to add them, if you've got a WordPress website, you can add a plugin, a free plugin called SEO Yoast. SEO Yoast. It's free. It's great. It allows you to pop in your title tag and some other things that we're going to cover today really easily, right? So our next piece of the sandwich, the next layer, is your images and your alt image names. And this is, to me, very low-hanging fruit, but you could literally talk to 100 SEO people and you're lucky if like 4 or 5 of them say, yeah, we optimize images. I don't understand it, but they just don't know. The great thing about this is as you optimize your images, it's a layer of the SEO sandwich that gets found on Google Images as well as when Google crawls the page. So it totally makes sense to do it. Here's the thing, of course, like always, there's a specific way you should be doing this so you don't break any rules and so it actually works for you instead of against you. So what does an optimized image name look like? Here's a nice example. This is the hero image from my web design page. And you'll see at the top, this is the original image name, 12386.jpg. Google looks at that and says, oh, that's nice, meaningless, and moves on. So you can see here I have an optimized image name, Kappa SEO Madison WI web design firm.jpg. What's important to note here is a couple things. One is I always try to stick to about 50 characters or less so it doesn't look spammy. That's a Kappa SEO rule, right? Because if it starts to look spammy to me or somebody on my team, it might look spammy to Google. So 50 characters or less. And you guys will see I've got just regular dashes here in between the words. We never, ever want to do underscores or spaces in an image name. It creates what I call gobbledygook. That's an unofficial term in the code and can mess up the SEO. Okay. Dashes are the way to go. They keep it clean. They keep it in compliance. And then you guys will see what's sitting above the image name is the alt image name or alternate image name. That's something when you load the image after it's been optimized in WordPress, there'll be a little section for your alt image name and you pop that in. And in this case, for alt images, you put spaces instead of dashes. The reason is that's something that some people might see, okay? This is something that was put into place for people if they've got disabilities. Maybe their computer reads to them. Maybe they've got high contrast going because they can't really see very well. So you'll get that alt tag will pop up over an image. So it needs to make sense. It needs to be readable and kind of like an incomplete sentence. Okay, so those are your image and alt image names. Every logo, every image, name it. And I'll tell you, you can really get a lot of layers, a lot of pieces of turkey, so to speak, into that sandwich. Google loves it. It's not obtrusive to the reader, and it works, most importantly. All right. So next up is your headlines. So that's number 3. And this is actually your H1 headline. So those of you who are kind of on the editor side of WordPress, you know, that's kind of the code. It's H1, which really means it's the biggest, most important headline on the page. And that's how Google looks at it as well. So we want to try, if possible, to get some keywords. Here goes those keywords that we're talking about again, into the H1 headline. In my case, it just says web design, right? Which is a great keyword for me. We don't want to overdo it. We don't want to stuff it or make it read funny, right? So you guys can see here, web design done right. It's got a keyword, but it also has an emotional tug to it. Anybody who has had a website built for them and had a bad experience, or they've got that 2 pieces of bread website and they're like, man, what did I pay for? They understand that there is an optimal way to build a website and a non-optimal way, right? The 4th section that we want to optimize is your on-page copy or your content, all right? And a lot of times clients ask me, well, what do I put there? I don't really know what to write. So I've got an answer for you. And this answer is something you can use on any web page, any blog post. You can use this in social media. You can use this for print collateral, white papers, it doesn't matter. In-store signage, whatever. These are 3 magic questions that I've developed that can help you make everything customer facing and really dive into building a relationship with the person who's reading your copy. All right. So let me share my magic questions. There are 3 of them. What is it? What does it do? How does it help me? And we've got a bonus question here. Who does it appeal to? And who it appeals to is basically who's your audience, right? Which is kind of important to define. So really quickly, I want to take you through these 3 questions so you get an idea of how to work with them while you're writing copy. So one of my favorite examples is a toothbrush, right? As soon as I tell you, okay, I'm selling a toothbrush, you kind of already know what it is and what it does, right? Most people know a toothbrush cleans your teeth. Where it might get a little bit more vague is how does it help me? Yeah, it brushes my teeth, but does this toothbrush have longer bristles? Is it better at cleaning plaque or tartar? Is it better at getting in between the teeth so that you have less cavities long term, right? Does it have a little tongue brush on the back of it? These are the kind of really specific benefits that we want to talk about with how does it help me? Yeah, it cleans your teeth. Yeah, it gets rid of bacteria, but here are some other things it does too, right? That's a real simple example. A more complex example is something called digital asset management. We had a client for many years called Wyden. They're an international company, and they do something called digital asset management. So that's what it is. But a lot of people don't know, what does that do? It's confusing. It's software as a service. It's a confusing thing. So what it does is, in a nutshell, digital asset management is kind of like Dropbox on steroids. Okay, it can help you manage thousands, hundreds of thousands, or sometimes millions of assets in a way where it's really easy to find stuff, right? So now it kind of makes sense, right? We know what it is, we know what it does. How does it help me? Well, the best way that digital asset management helps teams is that it makes it so that you can find an asset, whether it's a video, a photo, a white paper, you can find an asset in mere minutes with this application, as opposed to it taking hours or sometimes days to find that same asset. So it is a huge time saver and can save teams literally dozens of hours a week. That's how it helps me. And man, teams who are like UW-Madison or at NYU, they use things like this because they have so many assets. They would be buried in just trying to find stuff. Like, where's Waldo? You know, we don't want that during our workday. We want things to be findable. So that's how these 3 magic questions work. And again, they really help you kind of put your thinking cap on and look at, who am I talking to? What's important to them? How does what I do help them? And the great thing is, when you do this, what you are actually doing is making all of this customer facing, problem solving, value-based content that when a human eye looks at it, it's engaging. And when Google reads it, they say, hey, these people are the real deal. They're giving out good value-driven information. Now, here's the thing. Of all these 6 layers that I'm giving you today, if all you do is focus on creating this content with these 3 magic questions, you'll be in much better shape than you potentially are right now. So what I'm trying to say is, this is probably, in most cases, the most important thing to work on and focus on. All right, because it just has so much impact for SEO and for readability. So just remember that if you're feeling overwhelmed, hey, let's just focus on that on-page content. All right. Next up is number 5, which is your subheadlines. A subheadline could be an H2 headline, an H3, an H4, and so on. The most common ones are H3s. And what's great about them, as you can see here, still on my web design page, it really helps you segment the copy out, create a hierarchy. So if the reader already spoke to me and they know we do custom web design, they know we do SEO, they might say, oh, what's conversion? And they can jump right to that part of the page and read the content. What's also nice about H3 headlines is they have a little bit more SEO value than the on-page content. So we want to make sure that we're optimizing them as we go along, right? So in this case, each one of these has web design, SEO, user experience. It's got keywords in it. Okay. One more thing to keep in mind with your body copy is that you can also put keywords in the actual body copy. First and foremost, write relevant content. And then you can layer in keywords here or there where they make sense. And as long as you're aware of them, you'll start to see that happens naturally. You just don't want to stuff it or make it unreadable because you're popping in so many keywords. That's what images are for. That's what title tags are for, and headlines. So again, you're seeing this layering effect going into place where we've got so many things happening that some are being seen, some are not, right? And the last thing I want to share with you guys is down here at the bottom of the page. That's your text links. Oops, sorry. Text links also have some SEO value, so you want to make sure you're putting at least 1 or 2 keywords in there if you can. All right. So guys, that is our 6-layer sandwich of SEO. I do have this bonus for you as well, which is a 7th area. And this is your meta description. All right, your meta description, if you guys ever do a search query for whatever, again, we'll go back to dentist. You know, you guys will notice the top of the page is a bunch of ads, which of course Google wants to make money. So those ads always take prominence. Then you scroll down a little bit and you start to see what's called organic or natural results. And it'll look exactly like this. In my case, mine shows the title tag right here. And then this little sentence here in gray is your meta description. Meta descriptions should be 156 characters or less, including spaces and punctuation. It's kind of a weird number, but that's what it is. So always make it around 150, but just don't go over 156, okay? Otherwise, you'll cause an ellipsis, and that may or may not cause you to get a penalty from Google. Again, it's erratic. Sometimes they give you a penalty, sometimes they don't. This should be a descriptor of the page. If it's the home page, like in this case, it's more of an overview descriptor. If we're a regional business, we do want to include our region in there. A couple keywords is good. And really just in that one sentence, make sure somebody who happens to be reading this is engaged and knows what you do and how you can help them, okay? This might be your only chance to engage. If someone doesn't click on this, they're never going to see your website. So you want to make sure that meta description is as polished and engaging as possible. 156 characters or less. Avoid M dashes and N dashes. They sometimes wind up wonky. And other than that, that's your meta description. Okay, so really, that's what I wanted to share with you today. I do have also a little bit of action steps for you guys to follow up with after the workshop. So I'll review those with you quickly. What I would love to see you guys do today, if you can, while this is fresh in your mind, is one, review your website's SEO in all these 6 areas that we looked at today and give yourself an honest grade. And know this, of the hundreds of clients we've worked with, 99.9% of them come to us with huge deficits in all these 6 areas. So if you're lacking on your website for them, it doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It just means previous to today, you didn't have the good information you needed, okay? You're in the boat with 99.9% of other business owners and websites. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here with you today, is to help you identify what needs to be done to help you get found more on Google by optimizing your website, all right? The second thing to do is to apply those 3 magic questions to your content. Look at your pages. Are you answering those questions? Are you engaging with people in the way those questions are encouraging you to do so? And then the third thing is to start to take a look at that keyword report, start to build it yourself, either through KW Finder or Common Sense Keyword Report, or think about, is this something we want to invest our money in to get a really, top-notch keyword report for our business? All right. And the final thing I'd like to share with you before we start to take questions is how to get in touch if you guys want to connect. If you're looking for any more information or to connect about web design or SEO, you can go to cuppaseo.com. And if you're looking to connect about speaking, consulting, or the book, you can go to joeydonovanguido.com. And with that, I'm going to turn this back over for Q&A.
Thank you so much for that, Joey. We do have a couple questions that have come in here. This one came right at the beginning. I think you might have referenced a book from Jill. What was the name of the book? I'm sorry I don't have more specifics on that. Jill, if you're still here, if you wouldn't mind popping on and just adding a little bit of clarification to that.
Yeah, well, the only book I mentioned was my book, so I'm assuming it was that. But if I'm wrong, Jill, let us know. But I can show you the name.
That's the name of the book that I was looking for, is the one that you had mentioned at the beginning of the session.
Yeah, so it's called A Holistic Guide to Online Marketing. And I've got a copy here. So that's what it looks like. It's on Amazon, and it's also, if you go to joeydonovanguido.com, you can learn more about it, and there's links there to get to the book.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah.
I'll try and get to these questions in the order that they came in. Rashawn, I see that you have your hand raised here. This next one, though, came in from Crystal. Where do you create the meta description?
Great question. Great question. And thank you for asking, because I kind of wanted to share that. So when you download the SEO Yoast to your website as a plugin, you'll see, like, when you're logged in, let's just say you're on your homepage, and you kind of see at the top of the page, you see your image, you see your H1, you see your title, the name of the page, your content. You scroll down past that, and SEO Yoast lives under that on-page content. And you'll see there's a section there for you to enter your title tag. You just click on it and it'll allow you to populate it. And just below that, you'll see the meta description. And what'll typically happen is that'll be populated already. WordPress and SEO Yoast kind of just like throws the first sentence in, which is usually not optimal. So you just click on it and then you can cut and paste your meta description into there. And then once you hit save, it becomes live.
My question also is just kind of with that, is your recommended, or do you have any thoughts on Google actually creating your website on Google? So when you register your business on Google, it actually gives you the option to it just seems very simplistic for me, just to create my website right there. But what are your thoughts about SEO and that platform of creating your website through there?
That's a great question. And I don't know a lot about it. I have never had a client come to me with a Google website, and we have never built one on there or even thought about it, but it raises I think a bigger question of, like, let's say you're just starting your business, or right now you don't have the revenue to pay someone like us to build you a custom website with SEO brewed into it. What I'll often encourage people to do, what has a really nice user experience and costs little to nothing, is Shopify. And you don't necessarily have to have an online store to use Shopify. You can build pages on there. And that's a good springboard to get started if you're kind of doing it all yourself. Wix is another one where you can do it yourself. I don't like that one as much because it's a very similar kind of drag and drop philosophy to build the site. But what Shopify gives you is they were really sticklers about user experience. And that's actually something we're going to be talking about in a future workshop right here on DreamBank. I don't know if it's next month, but between now and April. But user experience is the positive, negative, or neutral experience someone has when they show up on your site. And what's nice about Shopify, they kind of build that into their process. So it's really hard to have an ugly site. You just have to make sure you're writing good copy and picking good assets to put into the site, good photography, good logo, and things like that.
And does that work for the service industry, or is that just for product forward businesses?
It can work for anything. I mean, it has limitations. It has limitations on design, where you can put calls to action. And that's a lot of times why, like, I've got a client now and she's got a Shopify. She's not selling anything, but she's like, I'm tired of these limitations. I want my website to look exactly the way I want it to look, make it look more special and unique and engaging. So it's a good starter website.
Thank you.
Not, yeah. Oh yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
Sean, I think you had your hand raised.
Yeah, just a quick question, and thanks again, guys, for putting together the webinar. So in regards to the main components for the multi-layer SEO, as we were talking about keywords, content, title tags, etc., in which of these areas would it be best to use long tail keywords?
Yeah, so that is a fantastic question. And just for those of you who don't know, long tail keywords are kind of what they sound like. It's a longer phrase. So going back to dentist, dentist is one word. It's a real short tail phrase. But something like dentist in Madison, Wisconsin is a little bit longer tail. Dentist and root canal, or dentist root canal, Madison, WI, start to become longer tail. And the answer is, man, if you find a good long tail keyword that, even if it doesn't have a ton of search volume, if it's got low competition and it hits the bullseye of relevance, use it wherever you can, right? We want to layer that in wherever we can. Probably the hardest place to layer it in would be in actual content, because it might sound weird, right? Maybe you can say it once in your on-page copy and then it starts to sound wonky. But here's the thing. Maybe you have a hero image and that's it on a page. But maybe, you know what? Maybe if it's a product, maybe you could put some different angles right? Or some different colors, and all of a sudden put 4 more images and make like a little mini gallery on that page, or even put thumbnails next to some things on the side, right? So there's different options, but now I can put that long tail keyword phrase in all 5 images. And it's in the image name and the alt image name. And if I've got 5 images, now I've got that 10 times. Boom, I just made that what I call a primary keyword phrase, which means it's one of the predominant, more important phrases on the page. And Google will see it as that because I've mentioned it about 10 times. Good question.
Perfect. And just to follow up on that, is there a rule of thumb for how many keywords? I know you said keyword stuffing isn't good, but like, is there a rule of thumb for the on-page copy specifically in terms of how many keywords generally would be a good amount to have?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question also. So I don't look at it so much as on page, off page, because anything that's rendering on the page, whether it's a title tag or an image, I count that as on page, even though the human eye may not be paying attention or see it. So really, the way I like to break it down is on an average sized page, let's call it 500 to 750 words. We want to have our primary keywords. These are the ones that are meat and potatoes, the things that sustain life in the SEO world, about 10 to 12 times. Then we've got what I call secondary keywords, which play a supportive role to those primary keywords. We want to list those out about 4 to 6 times. Okay, this is kind of like rough estimates. Sometimes you might wind up with more or less. Then there's something that I like to call semantic keywords. Those play also kind of a tertiary or a secondary role as well. You only mention those once or twice. The thing is though, just within the world of the keywords, now we've created more layers. It's almost like, you know, when you get a pastry. Sorry, I'm probably making everybody hungry. When you get a really good pastry and it's got all those layers in it, right? So just from the keywords, we've got primary, secondary, semantic. And sometimes you might mention a semantic keyword once, but it tips the whole page into getting found more easily by Google because it starts to create more rich, robust content. Instead of just saying dentist, dentist, dentist. Now we're talking about root canals. We're talking about preventative, you know, with fluoride and brushing, and all of a sudden, you know, it becomes a page that has more depth.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for that, Rasham. This next question comes from Bonnie. It seems like your services are digital, but you still target Dane County and Madison as opposed to the whole state, county, country, etc. What is the importance of targeting your physical location when offering your digital services? Yeah,
so that's a great question. And there's always multi-layers going on for a business like mine, because we do business with clients everywhere, even overseas. Once in a while, we'll do somebody in the UK or something. So the reason why I am hyper-regionalized as a digital business is because I'm still small business. So for me to rank in New York or LA is really tough. Okay. If you're an agency like SEM Rush or Moz, M-O-Z, which they do a lot of SEO, mostly teachings and applications, you know, they have further reach. For me, I know that once I get out of like the tri-state area of where I'm in, it becomes harder and harder to rank. So what I do, and what I encourage everybody to do if you are a national brand, is part of your SEO layering is going to be that hyper-regionalization. I have a brick and mortar. I have 450 square feet commercial space where I do business, okay? And that's in Madison, Wisconsin. So I hyper-regionalize that, and I use a lot of these regionalized keyword phrases in my optimization process for the website. The second part of that, or the other side of that coin, is that I'm also using phrases that will rank well nationally. I just know that I might not rank as well once I start to get out of my little bubble of a tri-state area, okay? Over time, as my website accrues more authority, which is a score from 0 to 100 that a website gets over time, as I have more blog posts, as I have more pages, as I have more backlinks, that regional reach will start to grow. It'll start to mushroom. So here's the thing, when you're just starting, you may not be able to target coast to coast if you're a Midwesterner, right? Doesn't mean you don't want to put that SEO optimization into your website, but it's a longer road to travel. As soon as I regionalize it, I can start getting business right away. I can start ranking on page 1 right away. And it's a very simple reason for this. The smaller the region, the less competition there is, right? So for me, it's always a question of, if we're working with a multi-million or $1 billion company like Home Depot, right? They're a big fish no matter where they're swimming around. It could be in the Atlantic Ocean, right? We can use whatever keywords we want. But now let's say we're that corner hardware store. Maybe we ship stuff, but really we have a lot of foot traffic, right? We can't compete with Home Depot. We've got to find keywords that are more regionalized. So I hope that makes sense. I hope I'm explaining that okay.
Thank you for that, Joey. Next question comes from Anne. All the character limits you talk about, are those suggested by Google?
So some of them are suggested by me. So character count in your meta description, absolutely 156 or less is a Google rule. Google has played with this over the years. At one point, they were allowing like 300 characters, but the problem is sometimes they'd show it, sometimes they wouldn't. So sometimes you'd have an ellipsis, sometimes you wouldn't. So even if you weren't getting a ding for it, the usability factor came into play, and all of a sudden your message wasn't getting fully read by the user. So that's a hard number. The character count in the title tag, also 70 characters or less, including spaces, is a hard number. That's a known rule in the professional community. That's what Google wants. You don't want to go too low, though. You don't only want 20 characters in your meta description or 20 characters in your title tag, because then that looks bad also. The character count for the images is something I've developed over the years that I have tested and really developed my own rule of what looks spammy and what does not. And, you know, I can tell you after doing this for, oh my gosh, nearly 2 decades and running this business for almost a decade, that rule works. It keeps you within a buffer where you're not getting a penalty, but you still have enough character count in the image and alt image name to make a difference in your SEO. And as far as like the primary, secondary, and semantic keywords, there are opinions all over the place. Some people say you only have to use a keyword twice for Google to know. Some people say you got to get in a certain number. I think both camps are kind of not quite right. So I've developed my own methodology, which I share with you. Like a primary keyword you want to have around 10 times, right? If something's on a page 8 to 12 times, Google knows, hey, this is a keyword. If it's on the page once or twice, they might know it's a semantic keyword, but they may not look at it as a primary keyword. And I don't want to take that chance and hope they're going to know.
Next question comes from Erica. Can this info work on a Wix platform site?
It can. Yeah, Wix gets a little funky, but we have helped a couple of clients. I've also consulted a couple of clients, do-it-yourselfers, kind of done some trainings with them and stuff. It has limitations, but from what I last saw on Wix, you can do a lot of this work. But it's within the Wix platform, so you kind of have to fish for like, where do I affect my title tag? Where do I affect my meta description? But yeah, you can get some of it done. And it's worth doing for now when you're on Wix. And then when your business grows, where you have a budget to have a fully fledged, fully optimized website, that's when you hire someone like us and say, yeah, let's knock this out of the park. Unless the flip side of that is if you're doing really well with a Wix site and you've got more business than you can handle, just leave the money in the bank.
Next one comes from Bonnie. What was the name of the plugin you referenced?
Yeah, so the plugin I referenced, it's called SEO Yoast, Y-O-A-S-T. So SEO Yoast has been around forever. It's a real great plugin or application for WordPress. It's well supported, it's free, and it works. And it's one way that makes it easier for like non-coders to get that title tag and that meta description on every single page. One thing to watch out with Yoast is they will also give you advice on SEO stuff. How many times did you use a keyword, things like that. I always say take it like a grain of salt. If you know nothing about SEO, it might be helpful. But when you're at a level of someone like myself or the people on my team who do the SEO for clients, it's kind of more like a little bit more like cavemanish. It gives you like kind of like real, like rough idea of things, but there's no real nuance to it.
Next one comes from Crystal. How do reviews come into play with SEO? Is there a way to take reviews from Facebook and transpose them to Google?
So that's a wonderful question. There's not that I know of. There are services that will pull your reviews onto your website. But what I always encourage people to do, and I also do workshops about Google My Business, because Google My Business is for any business, but especially a regionalized business, is super important. So what I encourage people to do is ask their clients, like make a nice letter that asks them kindly, hey, could you review me on Google? No pressure, but if you don't mind, if you had a good experience, it will really be helpful. Getting your review on Google is the best place to get a review for a couple of reasons. One, it supports your Google My Business page. And the stronger your Google My Business page is, the better optimized it is, and the more reviews you have, the more likely that page is going to show up in what's called a 3-pack at the top of the page. So when you search for something and you get the map, right? Google gives you a little map and it gives you usually 2 or 3 results. Now there's ads in there, which drives me bonkers. How is that a good user experience? But you want to show up there, because if you show up there, sometimes people don't bother to scroll to see what the organic results are. They say, oh, Kappa SEO web design. He came up first in Google My Business and he's got, 4.9 out of 5 stars. Wow, cool. And they click on it and there they are, they're on my website. So it helps boost the authority of that. And one of the great things about Google My Business is it tangentially boosts the website authority of your actual website. So they kind of work well together. So it's a really nice way to boost your website authority and also have kind of the thing working on its own to help you out as well. Another real nice thing is if someone reviews you on Google, then you can kind of pull those into your testimonials page, or you can pull your Google reviews in with different plugins onto your website. And that's just more for the human eye, right? Someone gets there and they say, oh, wow, look at all these good reviews.
All right, this last question so far. So if you have any more questions, go ahead and get them in. The last question right now from Rashawn. Any other great free tools for keyword research that you would recommend?
Yeah, I have done a lot of research. I actually many years ago used to use Google Keyword Planner. Even though it was for AdWords, I was able to work it for organic keywords as well. But Google kind of changed things there many years ago, and they gave averages instead of actual hard numbers of how many people are searching for a particular phrase. So search volume kind of became undependable. I would say KW Finder is the best one for free or paid. There are plenty of other ones out there. And here's the thing, they're all pulling data from Google. But one of the reasons why I like KW Finder, as opposed to like Moz has one also. Moz does a lot of great work. They have a lot of great applications for people like me, high-level SEO people. But at least the last time I checked, they didn't drill down to the city level. And being able to check at the city level how many people are searching for a dentist within the Dane County area, right? Because that's where we do business. That's super important, because if we're searching within the city of New York, right, we need to know how many people in New York are looking for a dentist, not in New York State. All of a sudden, who cares? How much of that search volume is meaningless? How much of that competition is skewed because we're not looking at the right region? So, it's like any other kind of case study. We need good data coming in to get the right output to know what kind of decision to make. And KW Finder does that. There are some other ones, they're not as fast, they're not as robust. Yeah, So sorry, but that's the best one that I have found.
Thank you so much for that, Joey. Great presentation. Lots to take away from there. So that actually Crystal segues into my next comment here. So Joey's next presentation will actually be February 15th, and it is 5 ways to create a better website user experience. Bear with me one moment here, and I will find that link for you folks to register, and I will put that in the chat. But yeah, Joey, this is the first of 4 of these style sessions. So they're all about 30-minute presentations, followed by ample time for Q&A. But February 15th is the next presentation there. And then, Joey, we had talked about giving away some books. Did you have a method? I have one in mind if you didn't have anything ready to go.
Yeah, well, if you've got an idea, let's go with what you've got.
Sure. Okay. So we're going to be giving away 2 books today. So Joey mentioned 6 specific things. I want to make you work for a little bit. What was number 5, the 5th thing that Joey had referenced today out of those 6 things? Go ahead and type it in the chat. First 2 people to type in the chat, we'll send them books. So. Do we have a winner yet, Joey? We got 3 in there.
We have got, yeah, looks like Patricia and Jill.
All right, Patricia and Jill, I will go ahead and follow up with the email address that you used to register today for this event, and get a good mailing address for you. And I will get those books to you as soon as I am able to. But yes, thank you so much all for tuning in today. Joey, thanks again for that. We here at DreamBank, we really believe in the transformative power of dreams and celebrate that our community is made up of fellow fearless dreamers. And as we conclude, we always like to ask our speakers, what's one piece of advice you have for someone who is pursuing a dream right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say the number 1 advice I would have is to be kind to yourself. And whatever your dream is, really take a step back and kind of chunk it down into bite-sized steps, right? Because if we look at the whole thing, it's like, holy cow, this is overwhelming. How am I going to do this? And I think, chunking it down and also being kind and understanding, when you see somebody on Instagram who looks like, wow, they got it all going on. Look how easy they make this look. There is most likely years and years and years of struggle, trial and error, just really like wanting to quit, not knowing what to do over and over until they figured it out piece by piece and got to where they are. So really just being kind to yourself and using language with yourself that's encouraging, which is really hard.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what my I call it guts. It's getting under the surface. It's a workshop that I've developed that kind of talks about this stuff. Because we can talk all day about SEO and marketing, but we have to be doing okay too, to be able to do that stuff effectively, right? Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
kind of a long-winded answer, but
Thank you for that. Thank you all again for tuning in. Hopefully we see you back here on February 15th. And on behalf of American Family Shirts DreamBank, keep dreaming fearlessly. We'll see you all next time. Take care.
bye guys.